Good morning, everyone. This wet morning. Welcome, committee members and members of staff and the community. Please ensure that your devices are either switched off or on silent mode whilst the meeting is in progress. Cell phone interrupts the course of the meeting. We will stop and wait for the device to be muted. This meeting is being held in the supper room of the Waihinga Centre, Martinborough Town Hall. It is being live streamed and will be available to view on Council's YouTube. The emergency exits for this room are the door you came in and the exit behind me. If we need to evacuate the building, please use one of the exits and assemble outside by the playground. Please remain at the assembly area until the building has been confirmed clear. I'd ask that you all stand and join me in the open karakia.
I don't have to speak.
Good, I thank you for that.
Oh my dear.
We have one apology from Councillor
My apologies for an early departure.
and an apology for an early departure. I'm happy to move those apologies. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Evans. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, no. Motion is carried. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare this morning, please? Acknowledgements and tributes. You need to share. Thank you, Mr. Mann.
Yes, I acknowledge the passing of Pope Francis, who was a great man and a good man. Also, the death of David Kernahan, Professor of Architecture at Victoria University, who, even though he lived in Carterton, has had a lot of influence on heritage preservation in our part of the world. But probably the thing that he will be most remembered for was that he was the chair of the organising committee back in 2017-18 for the committee that ended up erecting the Paul Dibble statue in the centre of Featherstone.
And also he had a very well renowned vineyard
Yes, yes.
in Featherstone.
Thank you. Any other tributes or acknowledgements this morning? That being the case, we will keep moving. Thank you, Martin, for sharing. We'll move to urgent business. There is none that I'm aware of, but has anyone got any urgent business? That takes us to item 7.1, and we are now considering the Strategy Working Committee meeting minutes from the 5th of March. Are there any corrections needed? No. I have done our job well this week. Well done, us. Do I have a mover to accept that the minutes of the Strategy Working Committee meeting held on 5 March 2025 are a true and correct record, please? Thank you, Councillor Gray. Seconded, Councillor Maynard. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, no. Motion is carried. And we have a second set of papers to consider. We're considering the Strategy Working Committee meeting minutes from the 12th of March, item 7.2. Any corrections needed to those minutes, please? Oh, on our roll. Do I have a mover to accept that the minutes of the Strategy Working Committee meeting held on 12 March 2025 are a true and correct record?
Some apologies, so I'll have to abstain.
So Councillor Bosley is moving that. A seconder, please. Councillor Gray. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, no. Motion is carried. And Councillor Holds is abstaining. Matters arising. Are there any matters arising from the previous minutes? I will now move to report backs and updates from the Māori Standing Committee and Community Boards. Storm, are you here to know? Perfect. So this is the section where we have the kind of outside representation, and then later in the morning, we have the councillor representation part. So good, moving right along. Decision reports from the chief executive, item 10. Our first decision paper is the MOU with business.
Apologies for interrupting, but Violet is here from the Māori Standing Committee to, you said that, was it
So
for?
it'd be item 13. Moving on to item 10.1, the MOU with business Wairarapa. So we've got Paul with us and Nicola.
Good morning, councillors.
Would you like to highlight any of the key points for discussion, please?
Oh, yes, thank you. We'll take the paper as read. The council will be aware that the MOU has been in place for some time now. Subject to the conversation as part of our preparations around the long-term plan, and of course our desire to have, or your desire to have a review of the relationships that we have with through grants funding and contributions to external organisations. The MOU is quite simple in nature. It's a grant of $15,000 per annum, and the one thing that is incorporated into this is the fact that it will be subject to review as part of our post-LTP commitments, alongside the other two councils' own desire to continue to fund in the way in which they have done in previous years as well. We heard, officers heard as part of the initial direction setting, recognising that there's been no LTP deliberation yet until next week, but we have heard that obviously we need to do that review of our relationships moving forward. So I'll bring questions of myself on it.
Fantastic. Councillor Old, you're fast on this morning. Start with you.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Just a quick question in terms of committing beyond the end of this triennium, that level of funding. It's a 5-year request, is it not? Where do we stand legally?
So there is no legal commitment. It doesn't bind us to a legal commitment. What it does say though is that we do have it factored into our budgets as they currently stand, but at any point as part of the long-term plan, even year on year, we can review that should you wish.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, I just introduced my comments by saying that last night, 3 of us were actually at another meeting where we were considering grant applications. And I would say that every single one of those applications came with much more detail about what it was that the applicant was seeking to do, often with timelines, etc., etc. I regard what we have here as no improvement on what we've had in the past. It's actually an open check for $15,000 where we apparently have no expectations for. And I would certainly personally move that there be some review of this before we agree to it, so that we can be clear what is it that our ratepayers can expect for this grant.
I will just highlight one point. Just thinking, Mr. Mayor, this MOU. So the way in which the payment for our historical obligations have come about is actually out of sync with the long-term plan and annual plan process, and as a consequence, the date for the renewal of the this MOU actually fell into last year. For this current financial year, the payment has been made as part of that current MOU period. So, as I said a moment ago, the officers did listen, have listened as part of the desire to not have enduring relationships as part of our long-term obligations, hence the year on year. We do expect to actually have that conversation as we move forward throughout the rest of this year.
Sorry, just while you're here, Nicola, would you like to explain a little bit about how that $15,000 helps towards for what our South Wairarapa district ratepayers get?
It's a contribution alongside Masterton and Carterton District Council.
Yeah,
as well.
that's just
I guess taking hold of economic development activity across all of Wairarapa district wide. We don't necessarily section off the value that 15,000 has specifically applied to. But I will say that it has included a lot of my time in the establishment of assisting Finiston Business Engine to get going, delivering training and capability to our businesses, providing key events across the region. Currently, I've spent a lot of time on delivering business capability workshops and delivering those district-wide. So workshop in South Wairarapa, same workshop in South Wairarapa and Carterton District Council and Masterton District. So it's all encompassing of all that activities. And I will say I get busier and busier and busier.
Sorry, just to be really clear, the section 3 of the MOU talks about business Wairarapa responsibilities. Item 3.3 is to complete the proposed schedule of works as outlined in the business Wairarapa long-term and revised annual plan. And when I look at that from page 7 through, that has a number of initiatives, continuation of the joint council partnership, commitment to Waihost training, expansion of the business helpline, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So can you just confirm that I'm reading this correctly, that the $15,000 pulls together with your other funding to ensure that you can complete these initiatives? And then your other responsibility is to report to this council and the others your progress on those initiatives.
Yes. And the first time I would be invited to report was the last time I was here to report against those initiatives. The initiatives do change over time, they evolve, they get bigger. But yes, they're absolutely happy to report on those.
Any further questions?
Just to add to it, and also would really appreciate any desires or KPIs that come from South Wairarapa District Council as well. So we're an open book and work collaboratively.
Councillor.
So, Chair, next, what was the amounts that Carterton and Marston, are they the same as us?
Carterton District Council is the same at 15,000 and Masterton District Council is 30,000.
Yeah, I think so.
Fantastic. That is the end of the questions for Nicola, and we will look to move the recommendations. Going to try my luck and to move them as a group. So I'm looking for a mover to receive the MOU with Business Wairarapa report. Note that financial contributions as laid out in terms of the MOU have been included in the 2025-34 long-term plan budgets. Approve the Chief Executive to sign the MOU with Business Wairarapa, and 4, approve the amount of $15,000 per year for part funding of Business Wairarapa as part of the LTP OPEX budget. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Gray, and I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor Maynard, thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, no. Motion is carried. Very much. Thank you, Nicola. Thank you. We'll now be moving on to item 10.2. I think this is well, it is the speed review, but to me it is it's an item of significance. It is not the first time we have had this conversation, but for reasons outside our control, we find ourselves discussing it again. And my dear friend down the end, Tim, could you please join us?
Like them to move, isn't he?
Yes, it's like he's a little worried. Good morning.
Morning.
Can you
Yeah, just before, you guys start, can I just acknowledge, the feedback from the community that's come to council, with regards to the letter that, we have asked, our CE to send off to the Minister of Transport. The Martinborough Community Board kicked off, an online petition. I think they had well over 100 responses for that to go alongside. So yeah, I suppose it's all in partnership, but I'd just like to acknowledge the efforts of the community and others within Martinborough to get some change.
This is it's an item of significance. It's an item of deep importance to the community, and it is unfortunate that we are here to redo what is already done, but that is outside of our control. Stefan and Tim, are you able to take us through the paper? Well, certainly take the paper as read, but highlight areas of significance. We'll move to questions.
Thank you, Chair. So the team, now that we're clear on our instructions from central government, pulling out all these stocks to reconsult on the speed review. We're hoping that the material that we've produced previously will still be largely usable, and will mean that the process for everyone, including your busy selves, will be as efficient as possible. This today is an opportunity just to test your comfort again with the material and seek your approval to for us to start the reconsultation process. There are some shifts in the paper that we need to make sure that everybody is happy going into consultation, and Tim's here to cover off the detail that you may have.
Sure. I'll start by saying whilst I am frustrated that we have to do this again, I'm comfortable with where you've landed. And I'm keen to get this underway as fast as humanly possible. My big concern, I guess, is around consultation fatigue and community frustration. And I wonder if officers have given any thought to how we communicate and engage with our community in a way that says everything you said the first time was valuable and valid. Please, 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 please resubmit again. We know that's frustrating to you, but we continue to need to hear your voice. Is there planning around that?
Yes, there is, Chair. I mean, we're certainly not going to approach this as a fresh consultation. It is a reconsultation. So we will be making it clear to the public that we're picking up from where we left off, really. And that'll be the narrative. We still want a wholesome engagement. You know, people need to know that their voice is welcome and it will be heard. We'll be encouraging everyone to do that, but we will also be trying to make the process as efficient as we can for the public. I think, Chair, what we're hearing, and it probably mirrors what you've all been hearing, is that this is very, very important to the public. The DSI rates for our district have worsened over the past couple of years, sadly. And it is something that commands a lot of attention from the public. So I do believe that this is something they will want us to act on quickly, and you will want us to act on quickly. And so it is scheduled, I believe, for May, isn't it?
Great. Councillor Old.
I didn't have one, you know.
Just me, please, can you just confirm for me that whatever goes out, it will explain about the changes around Marae. I just noticed that none of those are here, like the road on Regent Street hasn't even been mentioned when that's been quite controversial. And it's not on here. And that's the one with the rugby club and the soccer grounds and the gym and the Marae all on it at 100. And that's not showing here anywhere. So I'm just wanting to absolutely confirm that those will be on there as part of this consultation, when we know that Marae is actually shouldn't have even been held up anyway, because that hasn't been changed, has it? They were allowing those lowering of the speed limits around Marae to be put in place, but that hasn't been the case. So can we please ensure that if that's going out as part of the consultation, it's in here, and it's not here right now. It would be good just to be able to confirm what's happening around Kohanui Marae, because that is on a main road. But Par Road is mentioned in here. So it would be really nice to absolutely ensure that the others are.
I think, Chair, if there aren't any more kind of high level comments on the process and sort of where we've landed, can I hand over to Tim to sort of walk you through the detail, including that important question that's been raised by the councillor on Marae and also on schools.
Yeah, just double check there's no process related question. No, Tim, over to you.
The David Shining report are basically amendments from our previous plan, not all of them, like previous plan encompassed Dunsefield roads and
Instead of 14.
Oakmiller Road and those. These are the only two changes enforced on us under the new rule. So, yeah, look at that. The road of Peratoma, Regent Street were all 60k under the previous plan, and they remain to be under 60k in the consultations document. So we're only highlighting changes from what has already been adopted by this council.
So there's a further change then to Par Road,
Yes, it's gone from 30 to 40.
to 40 from 50.
It's 50 at the moment.
Yeah.
It was 30 in the previous plan. Just gone to 40 in the new plan, so that's what's mentioned in the tables. It's an amendment to previous.
Already consulted on.
We've highlighted the changes which have been forced on us. Sort of the timeline to give us a bit of a chance to deep dive and have a sanity check around what we may have missed last time. And there's been a couple of roads highlighted there, like Todd Road out here, Underhill Road down past the Sports Centre in Featherston. That's incorporated the White Towns Trail through there, so it's enabled us to look at it a bit more deeply and a bit more seriously. Because last time, a lot of pressure on us to get both councils going together, and it was a big plan last time. But I think looking at it, all makes it feel like we've got it pretty much right the first time, and that's what community is saying to us again the second time. So, yeah. So the biggest changes really are sort of around the peri-urban. Before bring that block up here, Wood Street, Kirikiti Street, Wall Street, and Greytown. And one of the main requirements is to transition that speed from 100k to the 50k. So we'll see some of the zones add a little bit, so we'll take it in from 100 to 80 to 50. So,
I think it's looking good. Any specific questions for Tim on any of the loading bits?
I think probably the major change which will make the Marlborough community is the inability to lower the markets we have the 30k. Only two speeds for urban areas now. One is 50 and one is 40, and 40 is aligned to streets with no footpaths. That's where we had to swing the coastal settlements into 40K instead of 30K, because they're all urban environment.
Hmm.
No, thank you.
Is it
Councillor,
no footpath and kitchens at the moment?
Councillor Williams.
Melissa, thanks, Tim. Just curious, so the NZTA, are they making you the rules now? So going into 100, you have to transition. You can't just go into 50. Sorry, from 100, you can't go 150. You have to have a middle ground in between, sort of thing, is it?
Well, we're saying that.
You're saying that.
It's common sense.
Yeah, common sense, which surprises me because they don't do it on their state highways. It's very good report. Thanks very much, Sammy. First thing I think is the coastal roads going down to 80 is probably, in my own personal view, right on a lot of those sections, but apart from that, it's very good too.
I think response to that, Cape Palliser Road, is money on it, so we do it well.
Fair, good point.
Right, Councillor Maynard.
So just the other one that I just, please, and let me know if I've just missed it, but, there's been a lot of discussion with regards to Kitchener Street, and we were told that could be looked at here as well with the, moving. Or are we waiting for that with NZTA?
It's a separate, through you, Chair, that's a separate transaction that we need to pursue with NZTA. We can't do it through the speed review. But it not to say that we aren't able to do that.
Is there any way that we could maybe just let them know that we're going through this right now, doing the consultation, and it would be really good to be able to implement that at the same time? Because I think as we've heard numerous times, because of the Princess Street crossing there, people and because of where the vineyards are and the bikes on that road, and that people were wanting to move it, that the Martinborough residents are wanting it to be further back, becoming 50. So where it becomes 70, it should be 50 from there. And that it's moved back from town.
Certainly, Chair, if we had a clear direction from councillors that you would like to endorse a reduction in speed on the state highway as we enter the Martinborough village, and it was, say, a 50-kilometre reduction from a certain point beyond the Palliser gate. If that was the instruction from you and you all agreed on that, then of course we could communicate that strongly to NZTA. At the moment, the conversation has been more around some councillors have expressed dissatisfaction with the way that the speeds are staged as you enter the village. Can we talk about options? So to be completely transparent with you, that's the questions that I've been having with NZTA, but on instruction, we could certainly
I moved that then, didn't we?
so to speak.
Councillor Evans had his hand up, so we'll go to Councillor Evans.
Just to finish that off, then I would like to move that we do actually look at moving that back as part of it and get something written as soon as possible.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Tim and Stefan. I noticed that para 4 or section 4 of the paper talks about the finance or the cost of doing this this reconsultation. So you've already submitted that application for 435K to NZTA. When are you likely to hear the result of that?
I had an email from NZTA this morning just asking whether we had a local share, so they're working on it.
That was one of my concerns going way back, that there was going to be, that this process was going to add further cost to ratepayers. So that's great. Thanks that you've put them up for some.
That's good. Yeah.
Thank you. I'd like to endorse and second Councillor Maynard's motion if she would be happy to include the southern end of State Highway 2 coming into Featherston as part of that motion.
that one is, that section of,
System road.
no, so that's, State Highway 2 coming into
Fitzherbert Street.
Herbert Street, which is part of the, turning over of safer speeds was, returned to 70. But not only was it returned to 70, it was, that 70
Extended.
was extended.
Yeah.
Into town.
Believe that it's going to form part of their NZTA's own reconsultation, but I don't think there'll be any harm in
Endorsing it.
So sorry, I was just whispering over here with Jennifer.
But I would be happy to do that.
To do that. So, you have moved a resolution that I
Yeah,
think
that we would like them to action.
that this council and send a letter to the ZTA endorsing a reduction in speed from 70 to 50, both at the entrance to Martinborough and the southern
Yeah.
end
Of
of,
Palliser and,
Yeah.
and at Featherston, that highway too.
so Councillor Maynard is moving that. The mayor has seconded that.
So if in your motion, Chair, if possible, please, could you be as specific as you can be on the points at which you want the, speed to change? So before Palliser, that's fine, I think I understand.
Yeah. Just that the red, this is coming up.
It's, yeah, so it's, State Highway 2
Up to
into Fitzherbert. So it's currently the 70k section.
Mhm.
We would see a return to 50,
50.
which is
Yeah.
what it was. What it was.
And while we're on it, can we also bargain for a 50, for a 70k past the Greydown Cemetery coming into Greydown from Featherston? Because
So it moved 100 to 70.
we petitioned for that with the consultations when they were doing all the speed work on the highways a couple of years ago, and they completely ignored us. We see multiple times when there's funeral processions going into that cemetery where there are so many close calls, it's not fun. So, it would be another one to add to the list.
I'll vote for that.
Cemetery should be
So we've
as
got
part of
this-
anyway, around
this,
cemeteries.
this paper, doesn't address those issues. This one here doesn't. So
No, so this is a move.
Sorry, I'm just saying we should focus on this particular paper for a start and then move, to, the additional
Put those on.
paper.
You need to move the amendments.
So what we're doing,
Oh, so this
moving
is
the
an-
amendment.
right.
So what we're doing is we've got a mover and a seconder. We'll now vote to add what will be the fourth recommendation to this paper. So all those in favour of the recommendation, please say aye.
Aye.
This doesn't include by the cemetery on, perfect, thank you. Yeah, I'm
Chair. Just wanting to delineate between the items that we are able to consult our community on as part of our speed review
This,
and the items that would stand outside of that, like some of the ones that you've mentioned, which will be a separate process with NZTA.
It would be a letter of support of change to.
and that would like to move at the same time.
Recommendation 4, which has just been passed and will now be added
Mm.
on again as a letter of endorsement. So separate to.
And, but not just of endorsement, advising that we would like to be able to move and make those changes at the same time as putting any of these after consultation. Just letting them know that that is what our hopes and dreams are.
That's not. Sorry, I changed.
Yeah.
Right, so that recommendation has been added, so which now takes us to moving the 4 recommendations. We're looking for a mover to receive the speed review report, approve the changes noted in the 2025 speed review report from the earlier approved but not implemented interim speed management plan 2022. 3, approve the chief executive to approve the consultation document and commence consultation as soon as practicable once the consultation document is completed. And then number 4 is a letter to NZTA supporting the reduction of speed at the entrance to Martinborough to the southern end of Featherston and outside the Greytown Cemetery. What does Janice has written down.
I'll move that.
We've got a mover and a seconder. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, no. The motion is carried I very much look forward to having this speed management plan implemented. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Stefan.
Future.
Again, straight away.
Hi, Tim.
John leave,
Um,
because he did.
Just get.
Point 3, Ridderford's Bridge Report. Have with us once again, change of costume, Stefan and Tim. Could you take the paper as read, but could you take us through any highlights or key points for consideration and discussion?
I was like to take the paper with, and probably most important facet of the paper is compliant with public health and safety. Council whether BCBU has got obligations. Of course, that calls reasons straightforward, I hope.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Oles and then Councillor Elams.
Thanks, Tim. Just a quick question about the traffic volumes for that particular bridge and the fact that I guess I need a little bit of clarity about on the opposite, at the other side of the bridge, once you cross it, for instance, it only goes onto a private property. Is that correct? There's no paper road, there's no other road.
There's a short link of paper road, but there is Carmlock Station.
Only access to Carmlock. Sorry, yeah, but there is no road to the Murray land. You have to cross Tarwhite Station to get access to the Murray land, which is landlocked here.
Would you like us to build roads towards the Māori land? It's a Māori.
Yeah.
Well, he wants us to put roads in for the Māori land.
Yeah, I just want some clarity about the types of use it has, other than the primary production for the operation of Tarwhite Station. That would be the sole use for that bridge.
Thank you. Yes, well, I will be voting against recommendation 2, though I am pleased to see that there is a sort of shall we say, an out already, which is what would happen if NZTA did not support it. I think one of the things that we should expect with essentially $1 million. I mean, presumably, if we're going to put up the best part of $500,000, we're expecting somebody else to put up the other $500,000. Is something that would equate to a cost benefit analysis, and I just fail to see us spending $1 million here for the amount of traffic which we've just had referred to can anyway come close to meeting any sort of sensible cost-benefit analysis, particularly when the person on the other side of the bridge frequently, I gather, refuses to pay rates. So here's potentially benefits from the honest ratepayer in the district, but isn't necessarily willing to shoulder their share of the burden. So I just can't see how we can go to ratepayers and say, let's spend $1 million on this particular.
Thank you. Councillor Elams and then Councillor Hawley.
Thanks, Chair. Tim, the prime issue here is obviously one pier out of 4 which is failing. What happens if we repair one or that pier that has failed? Has there been any investigation into this condition and the state of those other 3 piers? Are we going to be fixing one item or one piece of structure on that bridge, and then in the years to come, or in a short space of time, we have to look at doing further work on other parts of the bridge?
The only inspection is a detailed visual inspection of the other piers, and no signs of same sort of teeth.
But I would imagine there's no guarantee that further work to a bridge will be required in the future. There's
It's not bridge yet.
crystal ball gazing really as to what's to come. Councillor McCauley and Councillor Maynard.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I agree with Mayor Martin. That this just in a total fairness sense, which I try to take rates back to, just can't be justified. And I think we have to rely on the staff to come up with some options how we just don't do this. I just don't think as a councillor I can with a solution. But we cannot expect the ratepayers to, as Mayor Martin said, to cover the cost of this, which is going to be an ongoing thing, for basically one person. It's just so I would like to put it back to the staff to come up with some way that we just don't have to spend this.
So just off the back of both of those comments, the paper does talk briefly about the responsibilities that SWDC as a PCBU has as the owner of that bridge. And it does talk about the fact that we need to make sure that the health and safety of other persons is not put at risk. So can either of you talk potentially more to that topic around what is the risk to SWDC financially, reputationally, if this work is not done in this way that's been recommended?
But Chair, as a territorial authority, we have a responsibility to maintain a safe and sustainable network, and the bridge is part of that network. That notwithstanding, we're not insensitive to the comments that have been raised that the bridge only leads to one landowner. So the ROI on the repair of the bridge is very, very poor. But at the same time, if we don't act to repair the bridge, we create a health and safety issue that is unacceptable to us as a TA. So we're
Hard place.
stuck.
Councillor Maynard, then Councillor Evans.
So just as a clarification, it says here, on page 94 at the top that for the 24-25, which we're currently in financial year, we had already put in 500,000 towards this. So which fits option 3. And it's not asking for any more. So I'm just a little bit, so it can be done at a price where we're not asking our ratepayers to pay anything further because it's already been approved and is sitting here in our 24-25 budget.
Chair, my understanding, and Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we had previously ring-fenced 500,000 against this project, and that is available to you to allocate to a solution if you decide to do that. But of course, the ratepayer is still paying.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that's actually already in our current one. So option 3 is saying that it's 445.
This is a
So it's already been in our like in our rates, Stefan. So that's why I'm saying it's already been budgeted for, and so option 3, which one of the proposals here, fits within that. Unless I'm reading this wrong, and actually it doesn't, and that we're needing a further 445,000, which is not what it states here.
It says additional.
No, it says additional for option 1. And on option 3 was 445.
option 3, repair without.
Whereas option 1 was 945, option 2 was 945, and option 3 was 445. So with that being the case, we already had that budget.
Sorry, option 3 at the very bottom says unknown if this is a viable option as the damage is not fully known and will not be able to repair the pile cap.
What page are you on, sorry?
101, which is where it talks about and like what option 3 is. the right at the bottom, it has advantages and disadvantages, and the
Yeah.
disadvantages that it's not known to be a viable
Yeah.
option.
But all of them have a disadvantages to them as well.
They all have
And
disadvantages.
what I'm saying is that there is one that actually fits within what we've already allocated. So I'm just making sure we're aware of this.
Fits, but it's not known to be a viable option. So it fits, but they may. the- Sorry, Violet, before councillor
Yeah.
put his hand up, you had your hand up.
So my main worry is not the bridge, it's that ocean way that is in there. That river leads straight
Yeah.
to the ocean.
Yeah.
So what damage is going to happen in there?
What potential environmental
Yeah.
damage?
It's the biggest one. We care about bridge.
En- Environmental damage or potential environmental event?
As the time, the process, the application and submission of a resource consent. I've had initial discussions with Greater Wellington. And they have signalled that we will need the ecologist report as part of the consent. And that will outline the concerns the council has just raised with regard to any environmental or natural impact on the stream bed, mainly downstream, but upstream
Yeah.
won't be
Ready
impacted.
rounds.
Thank you. Does that satisfy your question? Some of
Look forward to it coming to the evening.
councillor, then councillor Woodcock, councillor Olds and councillor Gray.
Thanks, Chair. A couple of questions. Appreciate that this is a council-owned asset. It has been owned by council and their predecessors since it was constructed to provide access to that property. Is there a process for council to hand over ownership of that asset to the landowner? So that's my first question.
Gift it. And shall we answer that one
Name it.
first and then go to question two?
My understanding is that there is a process to devolve an asset like that to a landowner. But the landowner would have to agree to that. And it's hard to see how a landowner would take on an asset like that, would require $1 million repair to make it usable.
You would imagine, and I'm not a lawyer, but I would imagine that there would be a difficulty handing over an asset that we know to have a health and safety risk component.
And the second part of my question is there an option to have the landowner who benefits from that asset and that bridge, is there an opportunity to have the landowner provide a financial contribution towards council to go towards the cost of repairs?
Right.
I've
Cause Māori.
answered both those. With regard to investing in council assets, do that under the current policies, but there is scope to do that. And if you look at the context of where we are with other assets, I suppose a good example of that is where does this council sit with taking the lemon over of Hotel's right? We're going back to the agency to ensure it's upgraded to a high speed before we can start taking it over. So the same principle sits there.
This is the same
Um,
principle.
Contribution to works, my understanding that in the 50s, station did provide contribution to the building of the bridge. And it's sat under fair wear and tear since then. And there has been work done in the 80s with regard to the first fair. I'm sure what the outcome of that contribution was. So two big questions, which both of them will set a precedent for other assets in the district.
Because if we are going to on this, I'd be really keen to see if we can obtain a financial contribution from the primary user to ensure that if there's already been a financial contribution when the bridge was built, why can't we put our hand out and negotiate for something going forward for that asset to remain serviceable if it is still a council owned asset.
Yeah, option one though.
So we'll go councillor Woodcock, councillor Gray, councillor Old, so councillor Woodcock.
Melissa. So, Jim, what rating are they expecting to get? Are they going, I see in here one thing's mentioned about HPMV vehicles, but HPM vehicles shouldn't really be out there anyway. Yeah, 42 tonne. Yep, oh, that's cool.
Councillor Gray.
We have to have a bridge then?
Even trouble areas on your end? Well, I don't know what to do, to be honest. Can we have landlocked land?
We would landlock them
Yeah.
if we didn't have a bridge that was usable for an agricultural station of that size.
Yes, that's a question, can we?
We
Yeah.
don't have the, so yes, we could landlock them. The significance of that is in terms of what our obligations are to provide access on the network to a landowner like that who has enjoyed access on a joint contribution basis for the past 100 years. The other thing is we don't, under current RMA legislation, we don't have the ability to offer through the river access, forward access, for example, without going through a very complicated permission to the regulator.
I wonder if some of these options, given that they are somewhat untested, if we run the risk of moving spend from works on the bridge to legal challenge. And whilst legal challenge probably wouldn't equate to 445,000, I do wonder if, yeah, we're just moving eggs from one basket to another, councillor Olds.
Thanks, Tim, and thanks for the report, very comprehensive. And I often question why such a structure of this magnitude was built in the first place to service one farm. And obviously there was a lot more money in the coffers of the county council than there is in this day and age. And you've just highlighted the fact that the farmer probably, or the property owner at the time, made a financial contribution towards the cost of the construction. I think even if this bridge was to be demolished, it would be $1 million plus just in demolition fees. Let alone in the environmental impact it may have on the source of the river. I don't believe we've got a lot of choice. At the end of the day, we have to provide access. We've provided it now for over 100 years on this particular property. We've obviously maintained the bridge in the past to some extent. I don't think we have a lot of choice, and I think that I'd be supporting it.
So councillor Cooley and then councillor Wilson.
In all due respect, I do disagree with councillor Olds, and agree with Rebecca. I mean, I think that, when you just think of it just logically, I mean, we're subsidising the cost to make this farm financially sustainable. If the farm owner was having to pay the $1 million, it wouldn't probably work as a business. So it just seems crazy to go ahead as a principle and us supporting probably a non-financially sustainable business with the ratepayers paying for it. I think Councillor Lex's question, do we have to have the bridge there? I think, we want to stop this happening, not to carry it on if it's just an improper practice.
I think I just feel like I'm playing devil's advocate, but I think the two things we've got to be mindful of. One is that currently we are the bridge owner and we have a legal responsibility to maintain its health and safety. And secondly, the other thing I'd remind everyone that if we go down a legal challenge route, that's operational spend. So at the moment, the repair to the bridge is, galling as that may be, is borrowed funds, and the legal challenge would be operational funds. Councillor Bosley and then Premier.
Thanks, Chair. Where's the 445,000 going to come from? Is it,
It's borrowed.
so we're looking to borrow the money to do this?
I mean, there is an application through the chair. I believe there's an application in for funding through NZTA.
If that doesn't,
If that fails, then we will come back to the table and have the discussion. So
Yeah, I may also, I'd encourage the table to think about this on the policy level, which Tim's already alluded to. We can decline to provide the network access to a single business and enterprise or a small community, which then means they're unsustainable. So it works in both ways. And we're just extrapolating out from a single business with a very expensive asset to a group of houses with a less expensive asset to a Pinakura type situation. So you are making your businesses or communities unsustainable by not providing the access on people.
Martin, and then we'll have this side with Morgan.
So I think part of the problem here is that we have a paper which is devoid of real options. And so what it appears is that we're being confronted with a sort of an all or nothing sort of situation. Now, it's quite clear that we do not have to provide road transport to every property in the district. And in just the last 2 years, I think, if I recall correctly, NZTA, in fact, has said that it will no longer subsidise road repairs, road maintenance to a large part of the Marlborough Sounds. And indeed, a large part of the Marlborough Sounds where farmers have used barges and other forms to get stock and property. But there are a lot of places, a lot of properties in New Zealand that do not have road transport, but they find mechanisms for getting their produce to market. In this case, I mean, one of the possibilities is, I mean, quite clearly we can't have a dangerous bridge if it is a risk to life or anything. So we close the bridge. Potentially we turn it into a pedestrian bridge. People can cross, possibly stock can cross, but 40-ton trucks can't cross. I think there's a number of possibilities, and I would hope that future papers on topics like this would come with a with certainly a range of options. And I would also hope that we would have the confidence to say, maybe we don't have enough information yet to make a decision. And let's set up a small working party just to work through some of the alternatives.
Right, so
Are we doing the same?
Councillor Woodcock, Councillor Maynard, and back to Violet. And then we'll try and bring this conversation to a resolution.
Thanks, Melissa. Just a bit of clarification. Firstly, Tim, those figures you've got here, that's without the funding, so the funding would cut them in half. Is that correct? If we got our 51% funding, we'd only have to supply half that amount. Secondly, I have to sort of argue your point about the Martin. The Marlborough Sounds has the ability to use barges. That coastline does not. I agree with Colin. I don't think we really have a choice. I look at it in the point of Martinborough here, for instance. Now, we all know Dan pays a fairly large amount in rates every year. How would the Martinborough people feel if NZTA come and said you're not getting your bridge fixed unless you all pay for it? You know, it just wouldn't happen. So,
Woodcock, Councillor Maynard, and then Violet.
I think I just want to like reinforce this a little bit more, because one, I think that we have been given options in this report. I think that this report has, I apologise, me and Martin, but I do disagree with you. We've actually been given multiple options. You know, we've run consultations with Les. So I think that's there's 3 options here. We've all had plenty of time to actually digest what the information is. And I'm just a little bit surprised because at the end of the day, this does sit with the South Wairarapa District Council. It has been in place for a long time. It is showing disrepair, and we have conversations about other arterial ways, which are mainly roads that, we're really upset about. We're doing a whole lot of, like NZTA is doing a whole lot of work right now through Greytown to ensure on their main road. And I just think that although this one isn't used as much, it is still belongs to us. And I also believe that there would be a whole lot of legalities that we'd be looking at that will definitely cost more than what this is asking for. So I think we would be doing an utter disservice to our ratepayers if we didn't actually do this.
Good point.
Morally.
My whakaaro is that public access, once they get over that bridge, driving through his land, to get to our land at the other end, we have to get permission from him to get a key, to get access into our land. So, how much of our ratepayers are going to be able to get onto there, over that bridge?
Zero.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Chair, the also just sort of returning to that idea of thinking about this on a policy level, where other territorial authorities have reduced access significantly to their rural communities, coastal communities. Normally that's accompanied by quite a conversation and consultation with those communities in advance, so that you're signalling in advance that you're doing that, coming up with solutions with the community. Because if you do it radically or immediately, then you're very dramatically changing the land value and the ability of that land owner to react and to deal with the circumstance that you're creating for them immediately. So if we were looking, I think what this underlines for me is that there's a conversation for us on a policy level to address this issue, not to start dealing with this issue with this bridge, because that could be quite
And actually in recognition.
Dangerous. We know that this is really bad. So.
Councillor Ellis, and then we will bring this conversation to a.
Chair, that discussion before you said that this is going to be CapEx funding, so it's going to be loan funded. Is there an opportunity for council staff to have a discussion with the landowner to see if there is an ability to get as they have already contributed when the bridge was built, perhaps, is there an ability to get some financial contribution from the landowner to go towards that CapEx funding?
Dan?
What are you about doing again?
I know we might argue the point, or he might argue the point, but it's about.
This is about where this conversation goes, and this isn't directed at you, Councillor Elams. I'm just mindful that this is a conversation about a bridge, and we do keep referring quite publicly to the person on the other side of that bridge. So we just need to be really mindful of that. Yes, there may be a potential for a conversation. I just have no idea myself what pressure or what purpose that there could be for that person to have any requirement to actually pay that. Councillor Maynard, Councillor Gray, and then we're definitely conversation.
It's a really quick question financially. So you put here that the option one has a shortfall of 445. But would you be, when you were talking to look at getting some compensation for the work, and you said that you would be hoping for up to 51%, would that be of the 945 or the shortfall?
It would be 445.
So for the 945, so that could also be a good, I'm just saying, but only because we've already put the 500, it's already been budgeted for this year, so.
So, through you, Chair, it's hard to look at these pictures and think that there's any safe load that could be going over it at the moment. But where I keep hearing you saying is that we can't have an asset that's a potential risk. And to my mind, the risk is people using the bridge. So is there a way to reduce how much it's used or drop that right down? Is there any safe use of this bridge at the moment?
Well, the councillor, through your chair, councillor, the engineering advice was that we had to immediately drop the restrictions to single vehicles at reduced speed and reduced tonnage. So we've done that, but well, the problem is that people are, we're aware anecdotally, people are continuing to use that bridge and ignoring those restrictions, and that is creating a very serious situation for us. And so what we don't.
The liability still falls with that.
Yes, but we've been quite clear in terms of our instructions to road users and to the landowner that we're talking about. But we can't, without having someone stationed on the bridge 24/7, we can't reliably enforce that. And so, you know, that's creating risk for us. What we don't want to do is, I mean, of course, we can go back and consider some of the questions that have been asked of us, like financial contribution, but that is not, that there's several ways of doing that through a targeted rate or for an extra payment from the landowner, etc. That will take some time. And happy to pursue that, but mindful of the fact that, you know, that risk is just still sitting there for us.
So at the moment, we have an asset that's a risk, but it's only a risk if it's being used in a way that it's not supposed to be used. And there is access to the land, but not at a level that supports the business that the landowner has. Is that right? So we're increasing the
Level of service.
the level of service
On the bridge.
to
Increasing it.
support the business.
That's at a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
Bridge is in a very harsh environment for concrete and steel. So on a daily basis, it's deteriorating. Yeah.
And so that's then the second part of it, is that I hear what you're saying, that we need to be thinking about this from a longer term policy level point. Is there a way that we can still have the bridge able to be used, put a pause on immediate repairs and have a deeper look at options for what we're doing with assets? And I don't want to say things out loud like managed retreat, but at some point we're going to have to start as a council having conversations about what we're doing with our road network that's out on the edge, and also whether we can keep affording to do these sorts of repairs or to have these sorts of assets. So I'm concerned that we're going to be in a position where we're borrowing $1 million to build an over-engineered bridge in an area that we might not be able to support.
Just to clarify, it won't be the borrowing of $1 million.
No.
Because if we don't get the 51% far rate, you will come back to us for a conversation.
Which will still be the same, right? Like we won't be in a position.
What's $1 million?
Yeah.
Still will be a million.
Do you have any?
No, just share that we have tried to have that initial conversation with XFCA. They're very aware of the situation we're in. We've tried to pin them down because the ROI is an issue for them. And we are not able to give any more information to them.
I think we've had at this point a very fulsome conversation on this topic, so I'm going to move us to the recommendations. We'll see where the votes fall and we can move forward from there. I'm looking for a mover, please, to both receive the Riddiford's Bridge report and recommend that 445,000 additional CapEx funding be approved for option 1 pier repairs in the 2025-26 financial year. The option is contingent on NZTA approving the 51% FAR, and if not approved, officers will come back to council for a decision on whether to proceed or not. So Councillor Maynard, you'll move. Councillor Olds, you'll second. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. So we just keep hands up for maybe count 1, 2, 3. All those against, please say no. The split vote.
Casting vote, your chairmanship.
I'm not sure that
No.
I did, I'm not sure. I mean, where to from here? How much longer can we debate this?
Is it a possibility then to, well, no, because you don't want to, put it through to see whether or not we get the funding. But like what this is saying is that we're looking at the repairs contingent on the NZTA approving. But if
Put up from
it would be coming back,
say I'm gonna approve this. That's kind of feel. Well, I think it's a good one. I look at funding to NZTA, and the first thing they're gonna ask, you got local share. And
we've got one, sorry.
share,
Like buy-in,
Mm.
that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah,
and one, I'm gonna say no. If this isn't, so it's sort of in a catch-22 situation.
Yeah.
so, sorry, through, Chair, you really need council buy-in before you can go back to NZTA. Is that what you're saying effectively, and say, we've got local buy-in, through council, we're asking you now to support the other 51%. If we don't do this, the reality is at the end of the day, that bridge is continuing to deteriorate, as you said. The longer we leave it, the more of it's a hazard it's going to be. And if we take another 12 months before we make a decision around its future, then ultimately it's not going to exist.
Mm.
And it's going to cost
And
us
it'll
more to
cost
clean
us
it up.
more because it's never been as
Cost
cheap
us
as it
more
is
to clean
today.
If it gets to that point, well, where do they stand legally as to, taking us to court where we have to fork out a hell of a lot of money?
I'm not ensuring that it was,
So it's our responsibility.
Yes,
We
yes.
have that responsibility.
that's the council.
Place, although if they come back, NZTA come back and say, no, we're not going to give you the money, then it's a separate conversation that we.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
This is the initial discussion to go, got buy-in from the council to NZTA. And they can then choose whether they're going to give us the 51% or not.
And it belongs to us. Like, I mean, we have a,
So so they'll go ahead, then have a second conversation, right?
Select yes, councillor Evans.
Can I propose an amendment that, that council have a discussion with the landowner and see what appetite there is with regards to providing a financial contribution towards this?
I mean, we can do the amendment.
He's going to, he's,
But when that conversation takes place and it doesn't have a positive outcome, then it's going to come back here. And I guess when we look at things on a policy level, we didn't ask the residents of Nakura to pay for their road to be repaired. We don't ask the residents of Cape Palliser to pay for their road to be repaired. I understand that there is one significant property on the other side of this bridge, but I think when we make this decision, when we make this decision, it has to be based on policy and how we treat all roads in our area, not on whether or not we think it's deserving of one person to get a repair versus 10 people or 50 people or 1,000 people. So I think that's my thoughts on it. I'm just going to check a procedural question with Janice. Where to from here? Can this be re-voted or we just have to leave it?
We can revote.
Have to use a casting.
Ask them to go around the table.
Yeah, I would suggest.
Our standing orders have got some rather restrictive provisions about casting votes.
This is the casting vote standing order.
Sorry.
This is it here.
I would prefer to put this back to the table to be re-voted rather than use the casting vote. It is a big decision and I'd rather not have to use my casting vote on it. So I'm going to put the recommendations again, they are to receive the Riddiford's Bridge report and recommend that 445,000 of additional CapEx funding be approved for option 1 pier repairs in the 2025-26 financial year. The option is contingent on NZTA approving the 51% FAR, and if not approved, officers will come back to council for a decision on whether to proceed. Looking for a mover, please. Thank you, councillor Maynard, councillor Olds to second. All those in favour, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Thank you. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against, no. Motion is carried. Thank you. Moves us to item 10.4, another going topic, when legal dumping project costs report. So that will be James and Mandy. Please, you take your leave, Stefan and Tim.
Near side.
It's on the top.
Everybody put-
That's right.
Welcome.
Do members.
Yeah.
Please
I thought we
take-
said 24.
Can we just get a little quiet around the table, please? Please take this report as read, but we'd appreciate if you could highlight any key issues.
Well, councillors, just firstly, introducing Mandy, she's our lead advisor in the waste and resource recovery space. I'm not too sure how many of you have met Mandy. She'll be here to answer any detailed questions. Yes, taking the report as read, is initially just a few typos that I wanted to mention that need to be changed on page 103. It's also an approximate percentage of 0.05. That should read 0.67. That's just an oversight here. And on page 107, a couple of things we removed, implications for Māori. There are some that are noted, but the line up top says there are none. And the CFO has reviewed this report, so apologies for those typos. Really briefly touching on this, from an options point of view, we've given the optics, the environmental risk, the regulatory risk. Our focus has been on timing of doing this as opposed to not doing it or and doing it. So we're seeking, as you'll see, approval of $200,000 of unbudgeted expenditure. To mitigate the risk, we recommend that option 2 is taken. With cleanup started immediately. There's a report attached there from the EPA. Very clear advice on what they are suggesting that we do. So open to questions.
Thank you, James, and to start from me, just a confirmation that 200,000 of funding is not currently in any of our
Previous. January.
Through the chair, not as a specific item, no, we would be looking for end of year budgetary savings to offset.
And secondly, what steps, if any, would we be looking to take through the recovery process to recover costs from illegal dumpers? Is there a process for that?
So like with any sort of fly tipping, we would be looking for any identifying information that's within there. This is obviously just a lot larger scale than some of the other fly tipping that we see out. So we would be doing that as part of the recovery.
So part of the recovery, we would be looking to prosecute or recover costs from anyone that could be identified. Fantastic, thank you. Councillor Olds, Councillor Gray.
Yeah, apologies, because this is actually not new, unfortunately. This is an ongoing problem, and I think some years ago we invested a considerable amount of money cleaning up Bucks Road, from memory. I don't know who was around the table, or if you weren't here, James, but that was a substantial amount of money as well, and took a considerable amount of time and effort from community. And obviously this is a problem that we're experiencing, and I'm sure that other councils are experiencing as well. is just how do we try to eliminate this? Is it the cost of dumping rubbish in our landfills? I mean, if I look at what it costs to take a load of rubbish to the landfill or to the recycle centre, it's actually quite a cost burden on families. Obviously we've now got a cost burden that's going to cost our ratepayers in excess of $200,000 because somebody's flight it. And the chances of getting recovery of any of that funding, even if you found an address, would be probably pretty remote. But I'm just wondering how we go about preventing this from occurring in the future, and I don't think there's an easy solution here. Yeah, I don't know.
It's an easy solution. We, through Bandy's work, there's community education, there's signage. In this case here, when we were alluded to it, we blocked the area off. So consulted with Fens, Powerco and Forestry on the type of blocks that we use in there so that they have machinery to move if they need to get in. But you're right, I don't know that there is an easy answer with this. Seeing various commentary out in the community about the prices, or the cost of going to transfer stations. As you know, the pass-through costs that we have in place there. So that's a very common.
Yeah.
And this is dumping over a significant period of time, so the dump costs have changed over that time, and we're probably a lot less when that started, and yet it didn't prevent people from. Councillor
Bennett's seconded.
Yes.
Uh,
Thanks, James.
Thank you for the report and the work that's gone into this so far. It breaks my heart that this has happened to the land here. And I think whatever we need to pay to get this fixed is okay. This is a mess that humans have made, and so I think humans have to fix this. I know that there's been some changes to the waste levy fund around being able to access the fund for fixing contaminated sites. Is that something that we've explored, being able to use that?
Yes, I spoke to the, because it's not an official landfill site, where that's funding, unfortunately.
That's a shame. And then the other thing in the report, it talks about being able to pull the waste up and then sort it. Will we have a process for minimising how much is now going to landfill and whether there's some that we can salvage and recycle?
But hopefully, because quite a lot of it is scrap metal, so we should be able to separate out to that state.
There's lots of large items down there. There's car bodies, there's a spa. Since the new it's quite a bit of media interest. It's that article we've had contact where the helicopter contractor suggested that they go to do things potentially more cost efficiently, but that's something we could be looking at for the recovery.
Okay.
Great.
Councillor Ela.
Thanks, Chair. That's a big dollar value, and I note that there's, some of that cost goes to a team abseiling down in, crane operation, skip bins, etc. Has there been any consideration that rather than accessing that site from above, would it be cheaper to come up from below to access that site and take the material out?
To be really careful. That's very dangerous.
Engineer, and he tried to access from the bottom, but it's way higher than you.
Okay.
Last year.
Thanks.
Woodcock, was it a wave?
Yeah, actually, Aidan just asked one of my questions. Looking at it here, it's hard to tell how steep it is to access it from the bottom. I see they've got a contingency there for a bulldozer to cut. I presume there looks like there's a track going down to it. So I presume that's to tidy that track up to get better access, is it?
Yeah, it's a bit of a thin track at the moment, so we're just being some trees that we can get the frame in.
So then you can bulldoze right. I know it's hard to tell from the photos, but looking at it, if you can bulldoze a track down there, I was wondering, can you get a machine and a truck down there rather than using abseilers to actually just pull up with the machine?
Oh, you will be bulldozing the track down to the waste. It's to the.
Or is it just in the top?
See.
So basically our, local dumpers have picked the worst, most inaccessible spot, at the largest cost for recovery because of its inaccessibility, so.
It's effectively sitting on somewhat of a ledge above the river, which is incredibly close to the ocean as well. So,
Yeah.
When it goes.
So lucky.
I'm
Yeah, that hasn't been leaching the waterways.
time I've been there, and then subsequently found out that the community had been aware of it for a while, which was nice to. So we acted pretty quickly and are keen to clean it up before anything goes into the river. Get the EPA after us, which
We have bigger problems. Unless there are any other pressing questions, I'm keen to move this to recommendations. I'm looking for a move, please, to receive the illegal dumping project costs report, approve option 2 and proceed with the cleanup of illegal dumping at Burrupi Cliffs in the 2024-25 financial year of operating costs to the amount of 200,000. Note the exact volume of waste is as yet unknown, which may require further budget to complete, and that we note the environmental and regulatory risk to this council.
Great loans.
Councillor Gray, seconded councillor Elams. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The motion is carried. So, thank you both.
Didn't always meet.
An expensive reminder that the actions of a few will end up as costing us.
Oh, that's a long time. Just don't. You're in sheds? The whole community has been dropping there.
Thanks, 2025. Ms. Wilton and Mr. O'Leary will take us through the report. Please take it as read, and highlight the need
Very cool.
for discussion.
For some dog.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, councillor. What you have before you is the latest information and proposal in terms of dog registration dog fee increase. The report proposes recommends option 1, which is a 3% figure for increase of dog control fees, reflective and captures and recognised 2.7% figure of the figure linked to the cost budgetary impact of inflation increase to cost, which has been captured within the LTP. So that is the basis for the recommendation of option 1. That rounding figure of 3% to recognise the 2.7% inflationary increase in costs, that being operations and captured in the LTP. Just a reflection point, councillors gave the topic due consideration prior to the LTP and matters of costs and recognising of costs and where they should fall were canvassed well by councillors at that previous meeting. And the recent history, a reminder that in terms of where things have sat recently, dog fee figures have gone up in terms of the recent 2 years, by figures of 10% and 5%, resulting in a compounding 50% increase for dog fees in the early year.
Thank you to councillor Olds and then councillor.
Thanks, Russell. Just a quick question in terms of cost recovery for animal control and particularly dog control fees. It's pretty much operates within the budget that you've set here effectively. Is there any public component attached to it, public good component attached to it?
It is both. Our basis of operation recognises the private and the public aspect of operational services.
What sort of percentage were we talking about in terms of public good as against user pays or cost recovery for dog owners? Do we know that?
We've got Charlie here who can elaborate on that.
Sure, the targets that when we did the review of our rates and revenue and financing policy was between 50 to 80% from the private good of the dog registrations. We're currently at 52%, so we're at the bottom end of that.
Okay.
Discussion in the past has tried to encourage increasing that private good element, but there's recognition of cost of living at the moment and difficulty of people to afford a significant increase. That's why we've only recommended an inflation rate.
It's like 3%. Yeah. No, accept that. Thanks very much.
Hilda, thank you very much for this report. So I'm glad that you did mention the fact that, like, just in the last 2 years, there's been quite a significant increase in here, up to 15%, and that was due to, you know, bringing ourselves on par. But I am just being really aware of the fact that the new dog pound was meant to become like a more sustainable and actually give us some benefits back for the cost, like the savings, ongoing savings that we would get from having that new pound. And I would have to call it a pound, but so I'm just wondering what the point is of having this 3% increase for this year is.
Through the chair, the costs in the budget have gone up by 2.7% inflationary increase.
Yeah, I saw that in the paper, but like I say, if we have a look at the costs in the last 2 previous years, we've gone up 15% for what we've had, and I'm just wondering why when we should almost be going, like, you know, like we're at that par. That there's now an additional 3% on here. I mean, I know it's not very much, but I am just going to ask the question. So,
sorry, to further Councillor Manning's question, am I correct in thinking that the previous increases were because our overall costs were low in comparison to others? So, and
no.
this is an increase. And this is essentially now
just an inflationary increase.
Yeah.
So correct, Chair. We previously had a target in our previous policy of 80% flat from private good. We were never achieving that at all. The range is to reflect a goal of working towards a more private good focus. In the past, we've had to play catch up to try and get towards that public good range, and if we didn't keep increasing to an inflationary extent, we'd fall below that range again. And there is another obviously another option is that we keep increasing beyond the inflationary to get further into that private good range that we've set as our goal.
Would option 2, which is no increase, does that have a rates impact? Would that 2.7% inflationary budget cost have to be offset somehow?
The risk with that is that you will fall below your revenue financing policy limit.
Yeah.
So
outside of the
you would be knowingly setting a position that fails your revenue financing policy and would then receive audit scrutiny.
Yeah.
Any other?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Yes, I will be voting for option 1. A couple of reasons. One is, why would we have gone to all the trouble debating and developing and reviewing our revenue and finance policy if we're now going to turn around and sort of chip away at the bits of it? So I mean, we've done that. The other thing too is, if the costs have gone up roughly 3%, well then it's got to be paid for by someone. It'll probably, in this case, as it happens, because of the revenue and finance policy, it'll be paid for partly by ratepayers at large, partly by dog owners. Now, we need to remember dog ownership is not a right. It is a choice that people make. And indeed, I am one of those who've made that choice. But what I would suggest for future consideration, Russell, Janice, is to do what is very, very common in many local authorities, which is you have a category of dog owner that's referred to as a good dog owner, and you charge them less and you charge the others more. Because what in actual fact happens, I think, is that the majority of dog owners do a pretty decent job. They feed their dogs well, they look after them, they do what they have to do. But there are half a dozen rat bags in every community who let their dogs run wild, whose dogs bite other dogs, etc. They're not contained properly. And as I say, places like Pararua, Wellington, there's, I think Masterton. Yeah, there's a lot of them. They have a sort of a checklist, and the checklist is how many times does your dog have to be picked up by the dog ranger? And if the answer is, you know, whatever, well, then sorry, but you're on the bad dog list. And I think what we now do is we end up with a sort of a three-tier system, one of which recognises that there is a public good element here. We're all better off if all dogs, you know, are managed, etc., etc. But that people who are taking that extra trouble to care for their dogs properly, they are recognised for that, because that is the behaviour. We'd like every dog owner to be a good dog owner, and so they are recognised in that way. I don't think it has to be a particularly onerous differentiation. And my recollection is, in any place that I know of it, that in order to get onto the good dog owner sheet, that actually costs. You put up a fee, or the council charges you a fee. You get the tick, and then from then on, you get a reduction.
If they get no.
It's a question to look at.
Thank you, Russell, and then we'll move along.
Yes, through you, Chair. Just hearing the valid comments by Councillor Maynard and the Mayor. First point is, for clarification, is in terms of the fee change that's been served up, is effective of recognising and capturing expense across the entire business, rather than just the operational functionality of the pound. So it's an overall capture. Very good point made. In response to the Mayor's point, we will certainly look at putting our heads together with some focus in terms of recognising the good effort of responsible dog owners and exploring category for that. And also recognise the Mayor's comment in respect of taking time to reflect and land on a good space in terms of the revenue and finance policy. So just
Great, thank you. We're going to move to voting because we are also running well behind schedule. I'm looking for a mover, please, to recommend that council adopt option 1, a 3% increase to the dog control fees for 2025-26, and authorise council officers to give public notice of those fees. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Bosley, for seconding. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. Motion is carried. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Russell. We are moving on to item 10.1, Wairarapa District Council AI policy and approach. And we've got Paul and Matt with us today. Please take paper as read, but highlight any key points for discussion.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is just in response to the AI and social media report, which was presented at the 12th of March at the Strategy Working Committee. It seeks to provide information assurance to councillors on how the council is working with AI and tools that use AI. Since that meeting on 12th of March, we've put in place and agreed a policy that's been communicated to SAC on safe use of AI within our environment. and are working to ensure external AI tools are continually reviewed or blocked. We also developed an accountability assessment tool, so people will use AI within a work environment, can consider the use of AI, the type of work that it relates to in terms of other legislation, such as the Privacy Act, etc. So very happy to have any questions.
I would just add one other thing, Madam Chair, and that is the opportunities that come through the appropriate use of AI. And already we're exploring opportunities to remove some of the administrative functions from submissions process, for example, as well as our regulatory processes. So this is an exploratory conversation. I think it's generally accepted that AI and the appropriate use of AI is a good thing, but it's got to be managed, and we have the appropriate controls in place to make sure that we're using it accordingly.
Yeah, I know in my professional life outside of council, we are a small team and we're finding ways to use AI not to replace human, but to make our time more effective and efficient. And so, yeah, we're looking closely at how we do that.
In particular, the customer experience journey as well. I mean, we're doing a great deal of work around our reviews of our customer journey, and we're remapping our internal processes. So the use of AI will be pivotal to making that all work.
Any questions from the table for Matt and Paul? Councillor Gray, go on.
Thank you very much for the report. I note that it's in response to the report that I brought about AI and social media. So yeah, thank you very much for the work that you put into it. It does look very, very good. I think it's a really good starting point. And I do hear what you're saying around the ability for AI to, it's a double-edged sword, right? It's a massive risk, but it's also a lifeline, especially for small councils like ours, and being able to implement it in a clever way so that we're not losing the human touch, but we're also able to, I guess, get efficiencies where we can, I think is really good. There was an article that's come out today that's on The Conversation. The title of the article is Major Survey Finds Most People Use AI Regularly at Work, but almost half admit to doing so inappropriately. And talks about a global study that's been done over 47 countries, including New Zealand, that shows that 58% of employees intentionally use AI at work, with a third using it weekly or daily. And that there's a concerning number of those people are using it in highly risky ways. I guess the question that I have for you is that in the policy that you've put forward, it doesn't seem to me that there is enough counterbalance to that, to making sure that all of the staff that we have are aware of the risks and aware of, I guess, the pervasiveness of AI. Like, we're not just talking about one or two programs, we're talking about it being embedded in pretty much every piece of software that's coming out now. I think, I guess I'm just looking for reassurance that in our policies where we're providing staff with computers, do we know what's being installed on those? What are the checks and balances? Are we confident that work that's being prepared is going to be factually correct? And with the policy that's being put forward, how is that going to be evolving at the same pace that AI is evolving?
Through the chair. So absolutely. So our IT team have been working a lot in that space to make sure that external AI tools are blocked from our networks. So historically, again, we didn't have that level of guidance for staff to say when it's appropriate to use AI or even which AI tools to use. So we've communicated that actually we'll be using Microsoft Copilot, which is in-house part of the Microsoft suite, which we already use. And it's locked down, so it doesn't have that AI learn, it doesn't send off that data, etc. So that is what we've started. We want to start from a simple perspective from our staff as they grow in this journey with us, to make sure that actually if you're going to start using AI, this is the one AI tool to use. And then we're going to put more wraparounds, you have advice assistance or further guidance, they can say, think about what you're going to use it for. So it's very good from kind of non-personal, create a draft of something like a project management template or something without the key facts and information. It's great to start with that. But in terms, as you say, in terms of that localized data, that localized story, it just isn't there as a tool yet. So we will keep learning in this space. The pace of AI is phenomenal, and it will be driven by companies that have a GDP higher than New Zealand. So we will be at the back of the queue in terms of, as a country and certainly as a local government sector, in terms of how we drive that AI as. The main focus will be tried and tested AI products. So when they have been tested by the market, such as Microsoft Copilot, or as part of a tool that we know across New Zealand is a reliable tool, etc., then we'll really start to engage with it. But we certainly won't be at the cutting edge of AI development as a sector or as a council.
For you, Chair, I think one of the main controls that we're going to have here is a cultural one. To make sure that when we're reports, we're doing it through human lens. We're not letting AI actually just say what it wants to say and then just rely on that. And then from a managerial perspective, to make sure we've got that technical insight and that quality control over what's being produced, to make sure that it's in keeping and fitting to what your expectations are as a governance group as well.
And we have ownership of that data going forward as well, so that if we've got all our eggs in one company basket like Microsoft, we still have the ability to.
This is a tool that we use, not that is using us. Yeah.
Councillor Eames.
Thanks, Chair. We're having this discussion now. How are other councils having a discussion, and what pathway are other councils following, whether it's Cardinal, Marston, or on the wider field across local government New Zealand?
Just yesterday, the Janice and I were in a conversation around how far north in the regulatory space around their resource consent, so using an AI tool to remove some of the initial submission and administrative tasking away from humans, still requiring, so targeting, having the humans focus on the more technical areas of expertise. Particularly important when you actually look at the constraints and the challenges for councils at our size as well, that have problems in hiring people, that we take a lot of time to attract talent. And so making sure that our own resources, our human resources, are deployed in the right places to help alleviate some of those pressures in the whole ecosystem of how we work as a council is going to be really quite important. So that's one example, and there's numerous throughout the country as well. Do you have any further?
Chair, yeah, just to add, so this policy and assessment tools were designed based on other councils as well. So the sector is growing and learning together in this space. And again, we will take central government steer through policy space as well in terms of how best to use this and adapt it. So it's very much a learning space for local government and the sector, but we'll keep our eyes open to make sure what we're doing appropriately.
Feeling that this is the beginning. This is the beginning of the journey.
Can I just add, so I guess one of the how I think with something like AI and how quickly it's moving at the moment, as long as it's got this policy is actually got at least quite a short time frame before it's being checked again, because I think it's going to, do you know what I mean? Like I think it's a good policy. I think what you've done is a great starting point. But I do feel that, like, unlike some of our other policies where we might have 3 to 5 year, this is probably going to need
evolving, isn't it?
a much shorter time frame of oversight going on with it. So yeah, that's a bit tiny comment.
We'll give the closing remarks to Janice and then we'll move to the vote.
I think just in response to the council's query about other councils, most councils now have an AI policy of some form. The one good thing about being in the local government sector is that it's not proprietary information, so we are quite open to sharing our policies with each other and learning from each other.
Carterton has an AI policy, and I know that they've got an AI tool that's currently looking at their submissions. So we're not out of sync with our neighbours.
Right, I am looking for a movement, please, to receive the artificial intelligence policy and approach report. Note that the SRC have approved the AI policy and AI privacy assessment tool and agree to the recommended approach to using AI systems that best aligns the council with the wider local government environment. Thank you, Councillor Gray, and a seconder, please, Councillor Bosley. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, no. The motion is carried. And our last item before moving to lunch is item 12.1. Sit a little bit. It is the Mayor's members report regarding Mayor's task force for jobs and speed limits. So that is item 1. Please.
653.
What page, sorry?
3. It's right heavy.
That's what. Members report.
We're not doing the.
Three.
We're
doing it for lunch.
Oh, here are we? 53, wasn't it? Yeah, was it right at the bottom?
Yep.
Thank you, Chair. I think there was one meeting we did have reports that went up to number page 900, I think.
There is, but this is one of the longer ones we've had in a while.
Yeah, so it's actually, to be honest, I thought it had skipped off the agenda altogether because never mind, that's what I thought. So look, there are two parts to it. The first was a letter from Destination Wairarapa, which even though it was addressed to me, it was clearly intended for everybody, and I also included the response, which was it was certainly a 2 or 3 week period when Janice and I were being very heavily sort of sent similar messages, not necessarily from organisations, but from individuals, and that explanation of what are the constraints we have, etc., etc. So I imagine that people like Destination Wairarapa and others will be pleased to have seen what we've done earlier today, and that we weren't somehow deliberately going slow or anything like that. The second part is really just an update on the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs. The Mayor's Task Force for Jobs, as I think people know, is and has been for I think about 5 years, a program that's subsidised by MSD. MSD fund the councils. The 3 councils have worked together collaboratively and employed Reid Wairarapa to do the actual job sourcing and job placement. It's worked well across the district, and in fact I think it particularly works well in the Wairarapa, because even though the councils know where their boundaries are, large numbers of the people, including young people, really don't know where the boundaries are and don't particularly care. So the fact that we can get young people employed in other districts, for example, etc., just has made life easier for everyone. We have a kind of contractual arrangement with MSD that over the course of the year we will try and place, I think the number is 59 young people into work for at least 3 months. We have actually exceeded that this year. It's worked particularly well in this part of the world because just about all of the jobs that people have got into are really what you would call sort of really good jobs. They're not sort of part-time, sort of, they might be here, they might not be. One thing of particular interest is that we've had 3 young people go into the run holder since it's open, and it's only been there for a short while. One of the very interesting things about the Mayor's Task Force jobs in this part of the world is the problem we have getting anyone into agricultural jobs. Now, I did actually go out and visit a couple in a dairy farm yesterday, and to the best of my knowledge, that is the first person this year that we have got involved in agriculture. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because agriculture is the biggest part of our economy. But I think the real problem is that ever since Taratahi closed down, it's not possible for young people to get that sort of initial training. And a lot of farmers don't want to take people on who, right from scratch, who don't have their own dogs, etc., etc. So that's probably the strangest aspect about Mayor's Task Force for Jobs in this part of the world. The other thing that is slightly unusual is that 75% of those we place are male. We can't quite work out why that is, because when you look at the figures, there's roughly equal numbers of male, females on job seekers benefits, etc., etc. But who knows why that has? And I just at the bottom, I've just observed that things are changing, and this reflects I think a couple of things. Firstly, MSD don't approve of councils that then subcontract to, in our case, REAP, but we're not the only council that's done that. And the reason they don't approve of it is that they believe they could easily subcontract to REAP themselves if that's what they thought they wanted to do. And so therefore they look at it and they think, well, there's somebody getting a double slice there. We'd like to see that come to an end. And the other thing which is about to happen is that traditionally Mayor's Task Force for Job has worked with what are called not an employment, education or training. So people who possibly have left school and they're just sort of mucking around a bit. But in the last couple of years, the number of young people on job seeker benefits has grown considerably, including in the Wairarapa. And MSD are looking for us to lend more support to getting that cohort of young people into jobs. That won't mean that the program won't continue working with people who aren't job seekers or on the benefit, but that's just the reality of the way MSD see the need at the moment. So that's that.
Thank you. Is there any decision that you need us to today?
No, this was just pure.
It's all just for information. Thank you. Any questions?
I just have one point. MSD funding, I was sort of led to believe that it's going to be drying up and that the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs will be disestablished as such. I heard that from a reliable source, and I'm just wondering, you've got a report here and you're looking at the future of it, and I'm just wondering if that was not factual.
I don't think that was ever factual. In fact, one of the things that has greatly improved in the relationship between the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs and MSD is that if we go back 3 or 4 years, MSD used to take several months into the new year to actually even confirm whether or not they were going to continue contracting. And the problem with that was that the councils ended up having to lay off staff because there may have been
no guarantee. Yeah.
But certainly this year, MSD have indicated their willingness well in advance to continue the funding. The funding on an individual council level will be a little bit less, but that's partly because more councils are coming to the scheme. And our requirements to place people will also be reduced. Yeah.
Councillor Gray and Councillor Evans.
Can I move that we break for lunch and come back for discussion of this paper? I think there's a couple more comments. I know from myself and maybe other people around the table, but we've been sitting here for 2 hours.
You are correct. The mayor is an early apology. So if you have any questions for the mayor, we need to finish the discussion before we go to lunch.
So well, I guess the main concern that I have is that the mayor has indicated that he received correspondence from Destination Wairarapa that was intended to come to the council, but we've not had this correspondence. And I know we've had other things that have come through to the mayor that should have come to the council and have not, have instead been highlighted out to the public or to the press. And I just am concerned that this, that there may be other things that are going through to the mayor and not coming to us. I understand that that's a bigger conversation, but yeah. Concerned about that.
Any response to that? No? Thank you. Councillor Evans and then Councillor Maynard.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the report, Martin, specifically the detail on the Mayor's Task Force. I think, you know, the figures here, the youth that have got into jobs is great. Certainly good to see the that work that is happening in the background, and I think certainly this triennium within the South Wairarapa, the Mayor's Task Force has been much more successful in this triennium than it had in the previous triennium, in the previous regime. So it's good to see those results. Thanks.
No comment. That being the case, there is no decision to make. So thank you for your report. We will adjourn for lunch and we are due back at 12:30, please.
Very good, thank you. Hungry.